Well, today I want to show you how I made this animation you see here from my Instagram account. And Ian Neville or Jan Neville, I'm sorry if I misspell your name, I'm sorry for this. But I made this tutorial for you because you asked for, you got a tutorial come for this one. So I'm gonna do this now, and I'm gonna start with a brand new file. I'm gonna turn on my screencast keys so you see what I'm typing here. And I'm gonna start here with geometry nodes. As you all know, geometry nodes is just a modifier, and I'm using the version 3.6, as you can see here, 3.6 alpha. It's geometry nodes simulation. You can download it. If you enter or search for Blender download, you will see this site here, download blender.org. Then you scroll all down to the bottom, you go to download Blender experimental, and here you go to branch, and there should be a branch like this one here, geometry node simulation. This is the name of the branch you have to download. Of course, I have here only Intel and Apple Silicon, but if you have a Windows Rechner, you will be provided here with a link to your Windows version. With this version, you will have this so-called simulation nodes, which look like this. You have here simulation zone. Then you can put this in between, and then you have a geometry node simulation. What does a simulation do? Well, it's essentially a loop. All nodes you place between these two will be repeated and repeated over and over again. I make a very small example here. I do a set position, and I offset my vertices here by, let's say, y.01. And if I now play the animation, you see the cube is moving. So it's over and over and over adding 0.01 on the y-axis. This is why the cube is moving. So of course we don't want to just move a cube, we want to do a little bit more. So first of all, we need an object where we want to move on, or however you want to call it. So I'm gonna use a string to curves node, which essentially does this. It just outputs the text you are given it. So if I call here Blender, you see here with the text, and this is what the node is doing. But this is now just a curve. We want geometry, so we, or mesh, do fill the curve, and then we do a little bit of extrusion. So extrude, then you see we have a little bit more mesh. It's a little bit, what is it, depth? Yeah, I would say depth. Okay, now we have this. This is good. This is our text mesh, the object. So we call it this way. And so it's a little bit tidier. And yeah, I like it this way. Next thing we want to have a lot of points. So we don't want really the cube in here in the simulation, but we want points. So I'm gonna add points here, and let's add, say, 100, and I'm gonna add these to our simulation. So I'm gonna put this in here, and we join this. So what you have to be carefully of here is you will add every frame, you will add 100 points to your simulation, and then they are moving, as you can see, all on the same point. They are added all on the same point because the position is 0, 0, 0, and then we add here 1. I think you cannot see it in the statistics, but you can see it here, 23k now, because 230 frames multiplied with 100 is 23k. Okay, this is the principle of it. Now I want to have a plane. I want to have a plane above these text because I want to let it rain down from above. So I'm going to add a grid. So grid, which essentially is a plane in Geometry Notes. And I'm going to first connect this to my output to see what it does. Okay, I want to have the plane rotated, so I use a transform geometry. I want to rotate it 90 degrees. And now I have 9 degrees, okay, 90. So if I now join this together with transform, we can press Ctrl 0, then you get the joint geometry for free. And now we should see a plane and the text. Yeah, here's the text and here is a plane. We gotta move this plane a little bit up, so we go on the y-axis a little bit up. That's great. And we might want to make it a little bit wider on the x-axis, so we scale it up. And then we move it a little bit on the x-axis so that it's right over our text, so it can rain down on them. But I also want that it's in the middle, so I move it on the z-axis as well, like this, and I make it a little bit smaller. Lower the size like this, so that the text is wider than this one. Yeah. This looks good to me. Now I want that the rain is falling from the plane down to the text. How can I do this? Well, I use now this as input. This is, if you want, so my emitter. So I call this emitter. And from this, I'm going to do distribute points on faces. And now you see I got the points already. And these points I just join here like I did this one, but of course now I don't need this. This was just for demonstration purposes. So I didn't connect it to the join. I'm very sorry, so I delete this, of course. And now you see it works, but in the wrong direction. That's very easy. Just put a minus here, and then they are moving in the other direction. Okay, this is very, very nice, but the problem is here, the seed is always 0, so this means that the randomness of the points of the distribution is always the same. So we need a randomness per scene time, per frame. So we use scene time, and the frame we put in the seed, and now we should get always another point. That's very good. Now we have already a wane. That's exactly what we wanted. What we want now is that the points are getting to spheres. So I think I'm gonna put this also in the emitter because this is the emitter. Now we want the points to be instantiated. So I'm gonna do here an instance on points. This is what we do here, and then we use, let's use an icosphere, and this we use here in the instance. That's of course far too big, so 0.02. I think the size is okay for the first try, maybe even a little bit smaller. And these are now our objects. So these are our, how do we call this? I have no idea. Let's call this instantiate balls. And what we want to do now is we don't really want to see the text. This is just a helper. We don't want to really see it. So I disconnect this here. But we want to know the proximity to this text mesh, because then we want to make these radius a little bit bigger, and we want to make the velocity a little bit slower. So that's what we do now. How do we make the velocity slower? We just change the y value here, and we say faces, this is okay. And depending on the distance, we now change the speed here. So we do this with a map range. Note, because the map ranges values for the distance from a value to a value, and map this to from and to a value. And because we want to map here in y, we need to combine x, y, z. And for the y value, we need, as you know, the value we had before. I think it was minus 0.01. And if you want to slow this down, we even have to take a smaller value. So 0.002. Let's see how this looks like. And go. Extrude mesh, we have to realize the instances first, so that the meshes, we then can get there the proximity. And let's get the proximity from the faces, and for the distance very low, we want a very low speed, and for higher distances we want a higher speed. So let's check this out, and you see it's getting slower when we are near the text, and it's getting faster if we are far from the text. So this is essentially already what we want to have, and this is a whole node tree which is not too complicated, I think. What we else could do, what makes the effect a little bit nicer, is change the scale here as well. So I'm gonna put here another map range node, and depending on the distance I'm gonna change the scale again, and of course I want to make smaller scale here outside and bigger scales here for the near the text. So let's try here dot 1 from 0, here dot 1, and here we try dot 0, 1, and put this in the scale, and you see it's already much too big, so we go to dot 0.3 to dot 0.003. Let's see this again. Yeah, I think this looks already very nice, and this is how I made the animation. You cannot read the text now because I think we have the distance too high here, so we should scale this to something .3. Let's try this, and maybe the size is already still too big, so let's make it even smaller, and the outside even smaller as well. So you have to fiddle around a little bit with the settings that it looks good as always. And now I think you can already see the text. Okay, let's make it even nearer, this one here, and a little bit bigger of the scale, and I think then you can read it. As I said, it's always, you have to try. And as you can see, these two here are the basically it's the upgoing from where I want to start with the scale, and these two here, and decide how much the scale should be. And of course, if you go big here, you get something like this. But yeah, this looks not so good. I hope you learned something. I hope you like it. Have fun. Bye.